Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo. So we are back in what we called Bushman's Creek in the last episode. So this is a little mini series. It's not going to be a full zoo, featuring the Australia DLC stuff. So last week we added, kind of set the scene, I guess, added a dingo habitat. We've set it in what we've said is kind of a transition point between the red desert-y kind of area and this slightly more sort of savanna area. So we've got this little creek, and behind us, to sort of back to the camera at the moment, is where we put the dingo habitat. You'll see it all in kind of context as we do the real-time tour later. So as usual, starting with a speed build section. So yeah, I've put this kind of little platform in. What we didn't have at all in the last area was really kind of any guest viewing areas. So this is sort of that, and it ended up becoming a blend between that and koala habitat. So the koalas, as you probably know, can be a walk-in exhibit, so you can have guests walking around in the habitat with the koalas, and that was kind of the basis of this. We started this on stream on Twitch Tuesday, I think it was, or maybe even Monday. I think it was Tuesday, and then I've worked behind the scenes on it since then, and I think it came out pretty well. So the sort of initial stage was, I mean, the theme we're going for in this zoo, interestingly enough, does actually kind of fit with what Frontier have just started a competition about kind of recycled and the slightly more kind of rough end of the spectrum of the stuff that they've delivered in this DLC. So a lot of the things you get in this DLC are this kind of, a bit more scruffy looking, corrugated metal and rusty kind of rods and things like that. So we're going with that. And this actually ends up being, you'll have probably seen it in the thumbnail, but it ends up being kind of a little bit like a box park. You see those in the UK, but it's a bit of a trend in kind of reusing shipping containers to make bars and restaurants and all sorts of things. And in this case, we're partly using it as a little refreshment area, somewhere to get out of the sun for the guests, but also as part of a koala habitat. So the koala habitat, as you'll see when we get to the point where we're kind of walking around in the zoo, is a walk-in exhibit. The guests are in with the koalas. The koalas are kind of all over this area. And and these kind of form some of their, I think I use this as bedding. Yeah, I think eventually I end up using this as kind of a bedding area. So we're really just kind of trying to create a convincing looking couple of cargo containers. We've created that kind of first kind of shaded area out of the sheet metal, but it kind of looked very flat, and I think that was kind of where the idea to use these containers started. So just kind of create some convincing looking hinges. I had a few attempts at this on stream and eventually got to a point where I was fairly happy. I'm trying to, as you can see, I've kind of made a little bit of a hinge there, but it's not great. Then we're looking at kind of, okay, well, what about the rusty pipes? And you'll see I'm kind of just looking for something that works here. And then I've used this, I see this little flag. I think actually that could work as a little hinge. And I think it does end up working really well. So sort of start to see it coming together now. And once you put the rusty rod through the middle of it, I think that kind of looks convincing. You'll notice a lot of, I noticed this when I've kind of edited the footage, but you'll notice a lot of saves, little quick saves. I seem to have got in a little bit of a little panicky OCD habit of pressing the save all the time. There's a few places I think they're still in the footage where I've kind of saving it every 30 seconds a few times. So that's a bit weird. I don't think I've had any major crashes recently, but it's always a bit of a scary thing because the game doesn't auto save. So I think I've just got in an almost kind of a habit of saving really often. So we've sort of added a little bit of detail. We've just got 2 different colour variations. You see me kind of moving them into position now. We've got a red one and a green one. The colours I think are fairly alright. This one is going to be a chief beef. So we've sort of shifted that into position. We're now getting a little staircase in place for another one, which I think is a pip shot water in the end. Again, you'll see all this in much more detail. I think it comes in fairly well. Again, there's sort of deliberately at different heights. I was just checking there to see he could actually get in there, and he could. So adding some steps in now. There's quite a few little chops and changes, and as usual, there's a lot more stuff in the real-time section that isn't in the speed build. That quite often ends up happening. That I record enough footage and then I kind of go back and fiddle with it and add more. So this was the first point where we're adding some shade. I'm really conscious to make sure that I'm not casting any shade or shadow across the river onto the dingo, so you can see the dingoes kind of in the background. Surprisingly, the dingoes don't jump the fence and the koalas don't jump the fence, but we're giving the guests some shade here. That's actually one of the African shade beams. Works really well. I think that pattern on those African pieces looks convincingly kind of aboriginal. So yeah, I think that works quite well. I don't think that's an accident, by the way. I'm pretty sure that Frontier are very good at this sort of thing, making sure that things are kind of repurposable and reusable. So at the moment we've got the little platform in. Obviously you've still got the curb. A bit of an awkward thing you get when you try and do anything that's kind of raised up. It's never easy to get a kind of nice organic shape that has stairs coming off of it. So we ended up with like a bunch of things we kind of needed to hide. I don't like the fact that there's all these curbs, so I end up kind of stumbling across kind of like a nice little creative idea of making this all bench seating. The guests won't sit in it, unfortunately. It's all just for show. But I think it kind of helps. It kind of helps break up the 2 sections, and you'll see in a minute what I do is there in the view that the piece that I'm using there. I've got kind of a high backboard to it, or a backrest to it, and that ends up getting dropped down. And then you see I'm kind of filling in the gap between the fence that's right up against the path there, and then the seating that's up here with some mulch, and this ends up obviously being a flower bed. I think it just ends up being quite a nice way of sort of blending the levels together. Where you feel like, because you can't just see a set of steps going up, it's kind of a bit of a softer edge there where you get kind of between the 2 things. As you see, I'm using, because it's a very narrow space, I'm using the mulch pieces on their side. Quite a lot of pieces go into just filling that space up. And I've used a lot of the same. I've used a lot of sort of similar bushes. Kind of deliberately didn't want to use too many different things in this. So the sages and the turkey brushes, I think they are. They're not actually showing in the game as being native to Australia, but they are desert biome, and I think they kind of work. I don't think they're 100% necessarily right. But we've made a conscious effort to use them in places where it feels more like it is actually planted, and not just, not the kind of native flora that would be there, which is kind of what we did on the other side of the river. In the dingo habitat, I really didn't want to make it look like it had been, flower beds had been laid and that sort of thing. Okay, so we're getting into another one now. You'll see the innards of one of these containers sort of deconstructed. So I thought this would be nice just as a kind of contrast to have a little education area in this. So as I said right at the beginning, it's kind of a blended area between it being a food and drink area and a koala habitat, part of the koala habitat. So this is a little boxed off area. You can see on the right there of the screen there's a glass piece So that glass piece is actually part of the koala habitat. You'll see this in more detail when we do the tour, but the koalas will actually come into that little box and feed, and the keepers can get in there as well. So this was just a little way of putting a little bit of interest into one of the education areas. So just added this kind of extra little platform. What you'll see often, part of the reason why I ended up putting flowers, sort of flower beds everywhere, is to make sure I could cover a lot of these kind of raggedy ends. So you'll notice there, the bottom of the container sticks out below that metal trim, and so that meant that I then needed to make sure that I'm covering all of that stuff up, hidden away. I think it's often one of the things that drives creativity, is how you deal with the fact that, you know, something isn't quite perfect or something isn't quite lining up how you want it to. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't do it. It just means you've got to hide it. So that's what I do. I've sort of done it there. In fact, you can see I brought the benches right up to the edge, and I think I end up in the gap on the right adding some more flowers or something in there just to kind of cover that edge up. So yeah, giving it a little bit of dressing. It's jumped forward a little bit now, sinking some lights in. There's a lot of nice lighting. I'm quite pleased with the way the lighting came out. Obviously now we can turn the lights on in the day and don't have to wait for it to be night, but there you go, there's a nice little view of the lighting. And then the last thing we're doing is the final one, which I think was the chief beef. We started doing the chief beef, and then for some reason I changed my mind and went back. I wanted the chief beef to look like it was inside an open container, so here I'm kind of finding all the little bits and pieces that I've used to create this hinge, opening this door up, and then the chief beef ends up kind of going in one of the open ends of that. So we are very, very much at the end of the speed build, guys, and I will join you very shortly for a real-time tour. Right, peeps, welcome. So we are at the kind of raggedy end out here. This is nothing, this is all the kind of undone bits. So at the moment we've just got like a spawn around there, a couple of paths that go off. That goes around to the back of where the dingoes are. And then we have the walk-in entrance here, excuse me lady. So let's just zoink through these gates. Yeah, so I kept this. I mean, it's a really big area for the koalas, which is what I kind of wanted, but they don't need as much space as this, and they shouldn't be. I have got way more in here than I should have, but I wanted it to be I wanted there to be plenty of them. And I'm not really sure that koalas would really have a problem with there being a big group. I'm pretty sure I've seen them in Australia in big groups, in reserves and stuff. So we'll kind of do a little walk round at peep level. I love how they just kind of hang out and they're very slow and they don't do an enormous amount. But we'll kind of make our way through this little winding path. Oh, hello. They have got a couple of ways round. They mostly use this, but they can actually come over the top. Kind of like the fact that they just kind of chill down the path though. Hello little buddy. It's a shame there's no collision for them, so they don't, the guests don't kind of move out of the way for them. So yeah, just did a few of these kind of little bits of, little bits of pipe and rustiness and some of this kind of sage and those sorts of things. They kind of seem to really hang out here quite a lot, which is quite funny because they're almost like they're kind of hanging out looking at the dingoes. It's really nice actually. I didn't really realise you could do this, but so you can obviously use what is a walk-in habitat. This whole place is a walk-in habitat, but it's being used as a method for the guests to also look over at the dingoes. Thank you, Mr. Keeper. So I've never really done this before, but I know I have seen people using the whole zoo as kind of a walking habitat. Excuse me. Before. So we'll have a little look in here. So pretty the way this came out, we'll do a little we will have a little look round in the dark as well, because it looks really nice in the dark. I think it's a really nice view of the dingoes from here as well. As I said, I think it's like, it definitely feels like it's got a real dual purpose. So let's go up here. So yeah, as I said, we filled in this gap. I think these came out really nice. So we've got these kind of bench seated areas. Obviously, as I said, the guests don't sit in them, but they look like they should be able to. And yeah, so I just did some edging here, and use some pieces. This is actually I think it's one of the temple sign pieces. Let's just check that. Indian fascia panel. So that's a really good piece. That's it's good for using. I don't know. It kind of looks like it looks like a seat. I think it's because it's got this kind of beveled edge. And then we had these kind of couple of little weird bits here. So I hid those away with what's supposed to look like a little kind of help yourself to some stuff. I don't know what these are. Cups, and supposed to be kind of condiments or some drinks or something. That's actually one of the habitat feeding dishes, and I think that one is as well. They do actually, I didn't really notice, but they do sink through this one, which is a little bit annoying. The other one actually works really well. So we've got our chief beef here. We're supposed to be kind of like a little menu and things. As I said, I haven't got many guests in at the moment deliberately in order to kind of keep it looking tidy. See, this one they work really well. They lean up. They go up the little steps and they lean up. Whereas this one I didn't get the steps to work. So yeah, just as I was saying, you can kind of make it. Oh, there we go. That's good timing. So I put one of the arboreal feeders in here. You never see many of them come in, and actually I haven't yet seen any guests using this view, but it's a good spot. It's a good spot to view the koalas. Peeps are too busy with their hamburgers and whatever that is that they're eating. But yeah, quite a nice little spot. There's a little climbing section. We'll go take a look at that in a minute, but yeah, just more open containers basically. So this one's got Canberra on it. I think this one's got Adelaide on it. So just, Australian cities basically that you might see on shipping containers. Just noticed this is a little bit messy, but never mind. And then we've got the little bit of education in there. That looks really nice in the night actually. Yeah, kind of surprising they don't come over here and look through that window, because that is this is all pathed, as you've seen. I never actually seen the keeper go in there, so that's good timing as well. Look at that, right on cue. Everybody performing for me. Thank you very much. Let's go round. We'll carry on round this way. See what we can see. So yeah, these are the cover pieces. I think they work quite well. As I said, they do kind of convincingly look. Yeah, they look like they've got that kind of spotty thing. Is definitely kind of feels quite Aboriginal. Bunting ropes work quite well for that sort of thing as well. And that's actually one of the Indian pieces, that canvas, in case you're wondering. So I just thought it helped kind of give a little bit of shade. Obviously this is supposed to be a shady spot. Path is reasonably shady from the trees, but I quite like the contrast of it being, as I said, this is the transition. So we go from it being really sort of red and that rusty red, the kind of archetypal rusty red Australian desert, to this kind of slightly transitioning into woods and things. So the occasional gums, it's probably a little bit few more. Hello, excuse me, so rude. Occasional gum, there's probably a few more gums than there should be over there, but taking a bit of a liberty with that. So let's go round. We'll carry on round. There's not loads more to see, but we'll do a little kind of Wollongong is another place I just like the name of. I really love these kind of. I think these are the sages or the whatever the weird name that I used. They work really well. Couple of the new drinks machines, and then there's the exit. So I think we'll probably exit out of that way into something else in the next episode. But let's go. We'll kind of come off path now, so we can see. So I just did some stuff that kind of makes it look like these are supported. Put some rocks and things underneath just to hide some of the messy edges and stuff, really. And then this goes back round to where you come in through the walking entrance. So you don't get, and they actually get a reasonably decent amount of privacy. What I quite like about it is actually it's pretty much that if the koalas decide to spend time where the guests are, they can. So they can climb over the top. See, they can come up there. So there's one just there. They can come up this, or they can come up the tree. This guy's doing it right on time. I love how slow they are. Just chilling, man. Just chilling. I wonder if that's to do with the diet. They look a bit like stoners, don't they? I don't know what it is. They've got something a bit sort of very mellow about them. So this is that little feeding platform. As I said, there's a tube that goes up, or a climbing pole that goes up. So we'll just jump out of Tejicam and we'll do a little bit of a flying round so you can see kind of any other little bits I've missed. So there's a little bedding area. That's basically the only bedding area. And there's also the only bit where there's any water is up here as well. So I've talked about this before, but if you kind of give the animals only one place to go for something, then they'll be forced to use that route. So I want them to go and use this place, and I want them to come through here, because that's the place where the guests can see them. So they can only be watered from there, and they can only bed down there. They do actually kind of just hang about in the trees quite a lot as well. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's have a little fly over. So we see it all in kind of context now. I think it blends together quite nicely. Let's just turn the HUD off. We've still got some issues with things escaping and dingoes, I think, jumping down onto the roof and running away, but never mind. So I think that kind of blends quite nicely together. We've got alarm bells ringing everywhere. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure there's something escaped. It's usually a dingo, but oddly there's kind of nothing that ever shows up as an option for them to escape fire. But so let's have a quick check. Quick check on all the. So they are all in the trees there. I think they're probably the best so far at climbing. They seem to use a lot of the climbing areas. They seem to spend a lot more time in the trees than I think the monkeys do, which is really cool. Okay, interestingly, at the moment this is not showing them as being able to climb on this roof, but they should be able to, because there's a log there. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's have a little look in the dark. So as you'd sort of expect, not a lot of light going on over this side. Little bits that kind of ambient lights coming from the cabin, and this tree and the tent over there, and then this feels a lot more kind of lit up, and it just feels cozy. I think it feels cozy, and I like it when there's this stage where it's kind of not really many guests in the zoo. So potentially I need a couple more lights down this end of the path, but I like the fact that as you kind of come along the path, you get a bit more light. So yes, that is that one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all that sort of stuff. I'm trying to stream every Tuesday. the build process on Twitch, and then there should be another episode next Friday. As I said, thank you very much for watching. My name's Toves, and I shall catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.